You know what people don't talk about enough? How colonization wasn't just about stealing land. It was about hijacking the mind. They didn't just conquer people, they rewired them. That's the real psychological warfare. Convincing the oppressed that their suffering was order, that obedience was holy, and that freedom was chaos. They used everything, religion, education, even language, to reprogram people's sense of self. They told colonized nations that their gods were devils, their languages were primitive, and their traditions were backwards. And once you believe that, they don't have to chain you. You'll just police yourself. They created the civilized versus savage binary so deep in the global psyche that even after independence, people still chase Western approval. That's the genius of colonial psychology. It doesn't end when the flag comes down. It ends when the mirror changes. Religion was the most effective form of control, though, right? They didn't just introduce Christianity, they redefined it. They replaced the liberating parts with obedience and called submission divine order. They turned the same book that said, "Let my people go," into a handbook for staying in line. They said, "Blessed are the meek," all while enslaving the meek. They said, "Obey your masters," all while being the masters. That's not faith, that's psychological warfare dressed up as morality. And then came the schools, where they taught colonized children that Europe discovered everything, invented everything, and is everything. They erased native history, rewrote resistance as rebellion, and called genocide progress. They didn't have to burn every village. They just had to teach the children to see themselves as less. And when those same children grew up and started leading, they were already half colonized in the mind. That's how you keep control. You don't need armies when you've already conquered identity. Now they call it globalization. They call it humanitarian aid. They call it free market. But it's the same game, it's just different packaging. Debt traps, development loans, sanctions, media. They don't have to occupy you anymore. They just have to convince you that you're free while they hold the receipts. Fenyon warned us about this. Not because he was violent, because he understood the violence of being told your only value is in proximity to whiteness. Colonialism didn't disappear, it just rebranded. They don't need whips when they have Wi-Fi. They don't need chains when they control what you see, what you learn, what you dream of becoming. That's the war nobody sees. The one that makes oppression look like order. Because once the mind believes the master is moral, the body doesn't even try to run. Fucking hell.
Ladies, gentlemen, and anybody who has ever read a history book and said, this don't sound right. Today we're talking about how a whole group of people stole a continent legally. Now, not metaphorically, not emotionally, and the wild part, they wrote the laws after they stole it. Because if you steal something and then make a rule that says it's yours, apparently that means God approved it. Okay, so boom, it's 1493. Europe is so crowded, diseases everywhere, and everybody beefing over who gets to colonize what. Meanwhile, indigenous people, they are chilling here like sun up, grow food, sun down, enjoy life, and mind my business. And here comes Europeans like, wow, look at all this land someone else is using. Feels like mine. Imagine somebody walking into your house, seeing you cooking and saying, nice place, I live here. Then this man named Pope Alexander jumps in. Pope is not a president, is not a real estate agent, a pope. He wakes up one morning and writes a decree called the Doctrine of Discovery. And I swear to you, the energy of that document was, if the people ain't Christian and ain't white, take the land. God said so. That was the whole law. Not ask their permission, not bring snacks and be polite. He literally said any land not ruled by a Christian king was considered empty. As in millions of people, but empty. That's like me walking into a full Walmart and saying, nobody in here counts except me. So Columbus, a man who couldn't navigate his way to the right continent, even with the whole ocean in front of him, sets sail, lands nowhere near India, and says, I discovered it. Indigenous people staring like, sir, you late. He plants a flag like it's a DoorDash delivery. This is Spain now. Spain? Spain didn't even know where he was. The Doctrine of Discovery basically let Europe say, We didn't steal land. We discovered land God wanted us to have. They turned greed into faith and theft into destiny. Fast forward to 1823, the Supreme Court, yes, the same United States Supreme Court, used the Doctrine of Discovery to say Native people could live on the land, but they couldn't own it. Imagine renting your own land from somebody who just showed up. It's like somebody stealing your car and then charging you Uber fees to ride in it. And the ruling still has not been overturned. So somebody needs to do something about that. Now listen, speaking of people taking what they want, if you want to own something that nobody can take, like your own income and your own business, your own platform, then listen up real quick. Wealthy Affiliate teaches you how to build a real online business from scratch. No tech degrees, no Instagram influencer nonsense, just a real blueprint to ownership. Click the link below and start your free account, because if history taught us anything, ownership is rebellion. And now leave the link in the pinned comment section below, okay?
Welcome back to class. Today's lesson tackles the phrase, if black people are so great, then why were they conquered? Well, why and how has anyone ever been conquered? Because conquest is not proof of superiority. It's actually usually proof of deep insecurity, greed, and fear. And let's be clear, human history is a long one, long enough for every race, region, and empire to rise and fall. The Romans fell, the Persians, Chinese dynasties, Aztec kingdoms, Greek city-states, they all fell, and surprise, surprise, did you know that African empires existed, thrived, and fell as well? Mali, Ghana, Songhai, Nubia, Axum, Great Zimbabwe, all powerful empires that in the span of human existence once existed in powerful splendor for over hundreds of years and then ultimately fell. So the power structures that we see today aren't permanent truths. They're just snapshots in time, because a fall from power is not a reflection of worth. And let's underscore that one does not colonize a place that has nothing. You colonize because there is enough value for you to go to war and risk your entire life over it, whether that's the land or people and or what those people harness. And let's talk about what it actually means to be strong and this idea that Africans were conquered because they were weak. It does not take a genius to kill, pillage, enslave, or erase, because violence is primitive. Empathy, however, is evolved. It is a very fundamental component that humans pride themselves on having in order to separate ourselves from all of the other animals. Though actions do speak louder than words, there is an African American saying that goes, "You are lucky that we're only asking for equality and not revenge," because the real flex is choosing love over retaliation. It's building in the face of destruction. It's forgiving when the world tells you to rage. And isn't it wild that black people are still feared, but still hired to raise children, build cities, style culture, refine cuisine, inspire souls through music, and uphold the moral fabric of many bankrupt nations that they are subjugated to, yet somehow are still labeled as dangerous, lazy, inferior, yet somehow also essential? White supremacy is not logical. It's not spiritual. It's not even sustainable. It only works through violence, theft, and narrative control. So if you're asking why black people were conquered, maybe reframe that question to how and why are they still here? Because the truth is, the beauty of what makes us human is not our savage ability to take advantage of the kindness, empathy, and goodness that other humans have, but it's the ability of human decency in the face of such savagery. And let me keep it real for the ancestors, because they are not all kumbaya. You do not conquer greatness. You just delay its legacy with a little bit of context and memory moving forward. Class dismissed.
Section below, okay? Back to the episode. Now, they couldn't steal a continent and say, yeah, we're the villains, so they rewrote history to justify it. Indigenous people became savages, Europeans became civilizers, theft became manifest destiny, and then they wrote textbooks. Textbooks were not written to inform, they were written to protect the narrative. After they took the land, they had a problem. We got the land, but how do we maintain power? So they built a government that works like a pyramid scheme. Rich, land-owning men at the top, everybody else at the bottom. Women, nowhere. Indigenous people and Africans, listed under property or non-person. They created laws to protect their power, not the people. And then they invented something called taxes. Taxes were literally created to make sure you work, and if taxes disappeared today, rich people would panic. And then they had the nerve to rename themselves. The Founding Fathers. Founding who? Founding where? You can't found something someone else built. That's like somebody breaking into your kitchen and calling themselves the founder of leftovers. The Doctrine of Discovery gave Europeans the psychology of we are chosen, everyone else is disposable. That mindset became colonialism, genocide, land removal, slavery, taxation, government structure. The entire system was built on. They didn't just colonize land, they colonized language. They rewrote the meaning of American. They rewrote the meaning of freedom. They rewrote you. And now we're waking up. We're reading the documents. We're fighting the court cases. We're tracing the paper trail. Because here's the truth. If you know how a lie was built, you know how to break it.
They have colonized time. I was reading this book, The Colonization of Time, which I don't recommend. It's just a whole bunch of words and not saying too much of anything. But it did talk about how before colonizers arrived, they noticed how the indigenous people just moved around freely and just wandered about, just carefree. Our concept of time was tied to nature because we are tied to nature. The sun, the moon, the stars, the earth. We observe the patterns and the movements of animals. We observe the changes in all kinds of vegetation. And that's how we understood time. The colonizers, being unnatural with no connection to nature, did not understand this. So they imposed a rigid mechanical system of minutes and seconds and hours, and they used it to constrict our movements and to constrict our minds.
Make sure you like, comment your thoughts, and share this before they try to bury it. Stay loud, stay aware, and this is my unapologetic opinion, and I said what I said. So stay unapologetic. I'll see you in the next one.